What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, taking a review request while I am gone for the week. And this was an album requested by user The Album Man, who would like me to have a listen at Testament's Dark Roots of the Earth. Now, I could have swore I reviewed this album before. I tried looking through my archives, looking through the old accounts, locked videos, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I remembered that I reviewed this album during a time where I had switched over to Blip TV for a little while, and that account got shut down, but the review was there. So I have reviewed this album before, but I guess since it doesn't exist anymore, it's okay to go back and give it another look and give it probably an even better review than what I had before. So, first off, Testament. I don't really think I've talked too much about this band. I mean, I really like The Legacy. Practice What You Preach is an okay album. Really, Testament to me, I haven't listened to very many of their albums, but I have listened to this one before. So, going into the track listing, you have Rise Up, which is definitely a track which sole purpose is to get a crowd riled up at a show, and honestly, hearing this live probably would make me really riled up, because when I say Rise Up, you say war. Native Blood is a very, it kind of reminds me of, I can't quite put my thumb on it. It's a very preachy song. To me, it sounds like it's speaking about Native Americans and the atrocities that have been committed against them. So it's a very preachy song, but it's still really, really good. Don't discount it because it's slightly preachy. And then we get the title track, Dark Roots of the Earth, which is a slower kind of... It almost, even though it is the title track, it kind of reminds me of it's almost like a filler track. It's not as bad as some filler tracks that I've heard before on different albums. Nonetheless, it doesn't really have much to do here. It's okay, nothing really that big. True American Hate and A Day in the Death quickly pick up the pace again with the album. True American Hate probably being one of my favorite songs off the album, despite it being preachy, which contradicts what I just said about Native Blood. But it's a good song nonetheless. Definitely speaking about the times that the United States are living in. And A Day in the Death is another military-based song, kind of... It's... Testament to me have been really weird in their modern age. They talk about a lot of things that deal with the United States in the modern age, I've noticed. It's very strange compared to some of their early work back in the 80s. Cold Embrace. This is the weakest track on the album. I do not like ballads. I don't like it when metal bands do ballads. Megadeth is probably the biggest offender here, besides the obvious target, Metallica. Megadeth is definitely probably the worst offender of this, and this is just not really that good of a song, and it goes on forever. Or at least it seems like forever, clocking in at 7 minutes and 45 seconds. It's almost an 8-minute long song, and it definitely takes away from the album, and to me it's worth knocking one entire point off the final score just because takes up so much of the space on the album for this really, really bad ballad. And Testament are no strangers to ballads. Man Kills Mankind and Throne of Thorns. Man Kills Mankind is a highlight track. I wouldn't say that it's the best one off of the album, but definitely if I want to get somebody interested in this album, I would either play something like Rise Up, True American Hate, or Man Kills Mankind. Throne of Thorns is a bit of a slower track, a little bit more groovy. Again, it's more of a filler track, and even looking at some of the bonus tracks that came on the CD, which I listened to some of them, Throne of Thorns has an extended version which definitely is not needed. It extends the song by 40 seconds, clocking in at 7 minutes and 41 seconds, which is way entirely too long to begin with. It's already at just over 7 minutes. So, Last Stand for Independence, again, it's more of a track to get a crowd riled up and probably would be used to close out a show, in my opinion. There are some cover tracks on here, such as Iron Maiden's Power Slave and Dragon Attack by Queen. Power Slave is probably the best cover in the bonus tracks. Didn't really care much for Dragon Attack or Animal Magnetism, and I don't really count bonus tracks towards the final score of an album because they're bonus. They're not actually part of the full material that was written for the album. They're just like, hey, you know, for the fans, sure. So Dark Roots of the Earth in general, production-wise, is a great sounding album. It is a far cry from, like, for example, you take a listen to, like, take True American Hate and compare it to Slayer's latest track, Implode. It's night and day production-wise. It's like, I don't know what it is, but Testament have it right when it comes to the production. I think it's a very well-sounding metal album in the modern age. So, it's great all-around production, solos sound great, guitars are great, nothing gets drowned out over another instrument. It's pretty solid production. One thing that I've always wondered, though, is that earlier in Testament's career, Chuck Billy had a very distinctive vocal style. Now his vocals kind of sound like a generic, how do I want to word this? A generic, I don't want to say generic metal. It's almost like a generic death metal sounding vocals. You know, there's not really any sense of identity compared to his past work, say, on The Legacy, but I can understand why that is. You know, people get older, their voices change with time, and sometimes they just don't have that vocal diversity anymore. But with all of this taken into account, Dark Roots of the Earth is an excellent album. Easily a solid 8 out of 10. I wouldn't really go anything higher than that, but it's a really enjoyable album. I listened to it again while I was playing Battlefield 4, and it was great. It was great to listen to while playing a military shooter. So, really, really good album. I know I've reviewed that somewhere before. Probably some longtime fan's going to be like, why is there a review request of an album you've already done? To which I say, I can't find it. So, now it exists again. Dark Roots of the Earth came out in 2012. So, yeah, 2 years this album has aged, and not half bad of an album. So, if you haven't checked this one out, I recommend giving it a listen at least once. It's a decent album. So, 8 out of 10 for me. Danny here from Metal Couch, signing out.